I disagree with the saying that there is void. Tell me more, ABJ. Yul took advantage of a gentle May who trusted him with everything. Oh, somebody help us out with what it means to be void. Somebody help us out in the chat. What does it mean? What does it mean to you, ABJ? You help me out. What does it mean to you when somebody says there is a void? What did that mean? How did you interpret that? That would be interesting to see how you interpreted that. What is a void? I'm going to start that, come back to it. In fact, let me go back to the original point of. I'm loving this. You guys are so engaged. Beautiful. Let's see. Let's see. Okay, there you go. Found it. Boom. All right. So, yeah. What do you mean? How do you interpret this void? I'm curious. A lot of people focus more on, oh, polygamy is our culture, and not that these men are proud adulterers. Well, most of the polygamy that your parents might grow up in, that your grandfather that had 4, 5, 6 wives, most of them were initiated by adultery. Okay, adultery, cheating, stealing, lying, they're all wrong, right? They're all wrong. End of the show. But I'm guessing there's still more to it, and that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the rest of the more to it, right? So watch that. Let me repeat that. Adultery, right, or anything that looks like cheating, meaning a betrayer, meaning you agreed to something else but you're doing something else behind them. That's cheating, right? Stealing, you're taking something that belongs to somebody else, right? Or lying, meaning you are intentionally being deceptive to another human being, right? Like that you're telling them a lie, right? Those things are always wrong. The whole world knows this. No matter what culture or religion you go to, the whole world knows this, right? But yet we're struggling as a society, right? There must be more to the story. That's what we come here to Men of Prestige to talk about. Those other extras to it, right? That's why I always tell you when you come here that you're right.
Oh, you're right.
But let's have the rest of the conversation, right? So I'm with you on that, Majority of what you know as polygamy started as adultery. On paper, ideally, you just come to your wife and say, babe, it's time to take on another wife. We see that on TV with sister wives, right? But that's not how it works in real life, okay? Now, there might be unwritten rules. That we are Muslims, so I'm allowed up to 4 wives. But that doesn't mean that she's hoping that one day you will come home with the second wife. Generally speaking, nobody wants to share, okay? Generally speaking, okay? I guess it's a man's world, Priscilla says. It is a man's world in so many respects. But I'm not sure how that's relevant to what we're saying right now. It's infatuation. Yes. If you're talking about the lust part, that's what they have going on right now. The environment is not conducive for real love, okay? Which is obviously that needs time too. So we can't tell right now yet, but I can look at what they're doing and say this doesn't look well, okay? Everybody tag this. Still a man's channel. Chidima. Now won't drag me today, eh? Now just won't drag me. Okay, it's all good. I'm here with you. They are going to blame each other for their failure. Yeah, they're going to face each other eventually. And it's going to be probably Judy first that will start facing, because Yul is working for the most part, right? He's going to come home one day and he's going to be like, damn, whatever it is that we're enjoying, Otisha, is over, right? But hey, yeah. And he has more social currency and status, so he's probably going to get tired of the situation at some point, Or some people will consider he woke up. He came out of the bottle. Right? Let's see. There are comments focusing on Judy using gimmick to enter. Judy took advantage. Oh, okay, that part. Falls into the stereotype of women scheming on a poor man. Okay, thank you, Mario. Now I have better clarity of what you're saying. He didn't scheme or take advantage to enter her. So from all the, like I just said, social currency, social status, Judy has the clout. Yule has the clout, right? So I'm not surprised that a bunch of women, not even men this time, right? A bunch of women, they're calling cap.
Stop the cap.
They're saying she schemed, she knew what she was doing. I'm not surprised. Now, I don't necessarily think so. I think it's more so of there was a void. Okay? There was a void. Void does not mean loopholes. Void does not mean loophole. Can somebody else help us with this? Void does not mean loophole. Void has to mean something else. I promise. I promise you it has to mean something else. ABJ, there is no relationship between loopholes and void and a void. I can't think of one. A void, a loophole. Loophole is more of an intentional act or intentional opportunity for a human being to take. A void is a void. Somebody help me. It's not a loophole, okay? All right. Now, a void can be used as a loophole, but a loophole cannot be used. I'm trying to think it through properly. A loophole cannot be used as a void. A void is just is. A loophole can be made. Anything can become a loophole. A void is just is. Did I say that correctly? I'm more more pressure to
everything I do. I will. Pressure to what?
ABJ, don't do me like this. Why are you doing me like this now? But it's not loopholes. They might be related, but they're not the same thing. There's a reason why I asked you that question, because when you say that you disagree with void, I wanted to know what you interpreted as void before I even worry about that. Very, very important. Of course, Yul is responsible for his actions. Still, we don't know what he promised Judy from the start. Thank you, Iggy Flores. We've had about 5, 6, 7, 8 shows around these people. So I guarantee you somewhere I've said that this man is responsible for, even when it's not his fault, he's still responsible. That's actually the reality of life for men. Okay? Even when it's not their fault, they're still responsible. Okay? Now, there are ways I can argue it's true for women as well, but it's kind of different, you know. But I'm telling you, in this society, when it comes to tangibles, a man is held accountable all the time, regardless if he admits it's his fault or not. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter, and nobody cares. Okay? And that's just the reality. Okay? So you're right about that, Iggy Flores. Thank you so much for adjusting us small there. I interpret it like, as for me, I'm living with my husband and I trust him and I don't check him too much. I don't cheat or do anything out of marriage, so I expect my husband to do. Oh, so yeah, that's the wrong interpretation. That's why, again, I needed clarification. That's not what void means, okay? Just because you feel safe, you feel secure, that you're not checking around for stuff, does not mean there's a void. That's not what void is, okay? In fact, you feel like that, you can feel like that because there's no gaps anywhere. You're feeling safe because let's give him that credit. He's doing a good job at making you feel safe, right? Or you might say, no, I just decided to yam in brain at some point. I decided to borrow myself some brain and not come out by myself, right? You can say that too, then you get to take credit for that, right? But a void is not necessarily anybody's fault, right? In fact, if I have to make it a void, if I have to make it somebody's fault, it's himself's fault, okay? That's why I tell men, don't count on righteousness, because that will create a void. Don't count on your own righteousness. You need to set up systems around yourself. You need to be surrounded by the right people, because you are an average of the closest 5 people around you. The people around you, for the most, you're an average of them. The way they think is how you think, right? And if you surround yourself with the wrong type of people, no matter how macho you are or how righteous you are, that becomes a void, okay? That void can become effectively a loophole, but they're still not the same thing, okay? It was a void that became a loophole at the point where you're taking advantage of it. Then you can say it's a loophole you can take advantage of. But a void can be there and you don't have to take advantage of it, right? But it's basically when Yoruba people say Togiroba Lanu, that means if the wall does not open, if there's no crack in the wall, there's nowhere for lizard to enter. That crack is what we call the void. There's an angle for a Judy to enter. Okay, if there was no void, a Judy cannot enter. Strange woman cannot enter a place where there's no crack. Now, the conversation about whose fault is it is another conversation entirely. Okay, but what I'll tell you right now is that if you fell on a boulder by mistake, that is always your fault. But we can still say there was a void. Okay. And some people can also, just like you, misinterpret and say you're trying to blame me by calling me there's a void. No, we're not trying to say that. In fact, we're not having that conversation with you because you've made up your mind that it is that person's fault. We're talking to the person that have questions. They're looking for some kind of closure. What happened? Where did I miss it? Then I'll tell her it's not necessarily your fault, but there was a void. Some people call it compatibility. It just wasn't a fit. You just didn't belong together for a lifetime. And some people are obsessed with it must be somebody's fault. I must blame somebody for it. And they won't have peace of mind unless they blame somebody for it. Well, it's a rat race. They will never have peace if that's what they're looking for. Because a lot of times, there's no actual answers. Even after we blame that person, you're still not satisfied. So it's like Chidima said earlier, let's dig deeper. I guess we're digging deeper now. All right. So, good point, Aisha. Chidima says, Ola, you have been repeating there was a void in May and Yul's marriage. Yes. That seems to absolve Yul of responsibility and blame May. Maybe you explain what you mean by void. Look, you're thinking ahead of me. Right? Yeah. I have been repeating that. If there's no void, a marriage cannot break up. Another way that Brother Ernest said it earlier is that a good marriage it's not like you won't have crisis. They will get through all crises. They will get through all those crises. Now, we can look at that statement and say, are you trying to say my marriage wasn't good? Well, at least you can agree to it wasn't good enough, keyword, to sustain whatever it is we're complaining about. It's just being able to look inward and say, hey, maybe I could improve myself. There's always room for improvement. Well, what do I get? What do I stand to lose when I improve myself? Nothing, literally. At least I improve myself for me, right? It's difficult, easier said than done, because your mind is always going back to, why am I blaming or shaming myself for something that someone else did? That is a disconnect from the results you're looking for. It could be my fault as your coach. Maybe I didn't ask you, what are you looking for exactly? What are you looking to accomplish? Because if there's a disconnect, it makes sense that you're thinking somebody else is being absorbed. Because if I'm working with you to get the result you're looking for, I need to identify the result first. Which is why, if I make that mistake ever, I'll go back and say, hey, what are we looking to accomplish here exactly? Right? So when I say void, back to void. When I say void means a vacuum, right? Inside of our marriage, there cannot be a vacuum. Something will fill it. If there's a vacuum, I call it void. Something or someone, some kind of activity will fill it, because there cannot be a vacuum. Okay? We're not in outer space. This is the real world. There's an active marketplace. It doesn't have to be your fault. If you're not good enough, quote unquote, for the open marketplace that you find yourself, somebody will snatch your wife. That's what you will call it. Actually, you can't really snatch a human being. There's some void. It's not necessarily your fault, but it didn't work out. Something happened, maybe nothing happened, but there is a void. There's a vacuum, and you can't have a vacuum. You can't have a space where there's nothing there. It must be filled. It is never your fault if you're not the person that we're talking about. It is never your fault. As a matter of fact, I would disengage from the idea of fault, blame, right? Because what do we talk about here? We talk about seduction, right? Seduction and attraction. You cannot afford shaming or anything remotely close to it. You cannot afford insult. If you have to resort to insult, clearly whatever you're talking about is not working for you. Now you've resorted to insult. You can't afford to dwell on blame and fault. Look at the screen. Those are the 10 poisons right there. Yeah, but I don't care about this marriage. I'm moving on. But that energy is going to follow you everywhere you go. It will follow you everywhere you go. Judgment, justification. It must be right or wrong, black or white. There's too many variables. By default, you are probably wrong. Or you come to Man of Prestige, I'll give you what you're looking for. It seems like what you're looking for is to be right.
Well, you're right.
Right? I'll never take that away from you if you've made up your mind. Discrete logic, black or white, 1 and 0. Some of you are engineers and you don't know how to turn it off. You're looking for things to be exact science. It is still exact science, but because you're a human being, you're looking at things with your own lens. You're looking at things with your own filters, your experiences, right? So it's still exact science, but there's distortion. You can't see what you can't see. It is what it is, right? There's no right and wrong in anything I'm saying. Just food for thought. Things for you to think about. Just things for you to think about as we're going through some of these conversations. Okay? So Void, let me go back to Chidima, says, Yul's responsibility is his household, keeping his household together. It's not working. It's not my judgment that will help him right now. Konnichiwa. Meaningless. What I can do is have a conversation with you to have better understanding of how life works. Okay? Mara says I'm a troublemaker. Marriott. No, I didn't think it absorbs you. Yeah, there's nothing you self. Listen, do I need to spell this out for you?
Sorry.
Listen, you Colette. Don't worry. You worry yourself too much. Don't do that yourself. Chinya says, Void is something missing. Yes, something is missing for that person. Okay, this is the conversation of no one should be stealing. Because I was never trained to steal. Even though you live in Nigeria where 200 million, about 60% of them are youth without jobs. They should still not be stealing. Okay. All right. You're right.
Oh, you're right.
They will steal. Directly or indirectly, they will still cheat and lie. Are they wrong for stealing? Yes. Would they still steal? Yes. Okay. They will still steal. That's just the way it works. If you don't want people to perform or participate in bad behavior as a government, you have to create the environment for it. At least you know you've done your own part. Now, if they still steal, you build prison yards for them. You put them back there. Shout out to Brother Ernest. You build prisons for them. You put them. There's consequences for bad behavior. That is still the fact of life. That's how it works. But if all 60% of your youth are stealing, you can't put all of them behind bars if you don't create the systems, make the environment conducive for them. You don't turn around and say, but it's still their fault. All of them cannot be in jail. You won't have a society. So let's take that back to marriage. There's always room for improvement. You as a wife, you found out that your marriage has been broken apart. Your husband has been cheating out of town. Number one, he's wrong. Number two, do you want this marriage? If you want that marriage, you better ask more questions. Beyond, was I just wrong? No, nobody's asking you to be wrong. But what happened? What happened? Is there some kind of void? Just a question. Is there some kind of void? Doesn't mean, was that my fault? I understand you as a typical woman. That means to you, it has to be my fault. No, nobody said that. Nobody said that. No, it will never be your fault. Because you are not the one who fell into watermelons. It will never be your fault. But if you stay in that situation to punish yourselves and you don't ask these questions, now it's starting to become your fault. Because your children self in that situation, they will see what they're not supposed to see, and you, your children, and your husband will collect.
Sorry, yo.
Just letting you know, this is just a reality. I don't mean to blame you or make you feel like you're being blamed. Or listen, all that angle of blaming, everybody else will do that. It is that to be this person's fault. And listen, we know who is wrong. Whoever cheated, stole, or lied was wrong. But there's more to the conversation. That's why Allah needs to explain void. He just said it again. That's why we're here. Even if I don't explain them today, we'll come back here tomorrow to continue to explain them. I'm here with you all. Let me see here. Bikibu Agbara Bikibu all right. Becky Bu Agbara convert translation. Is that when I told you to speak Igbo? Don't do that to me. Come on. Hey, Just Jay, good to see you. Toby and Try, void. Do you mean a void in May or you? There was a void in that marriage, in that relationship dynamic. It was filled by Judy. If there was no void, a Judy, we have no vacuum to come and occupy. An emptiness. Something wasn't being fulfilled. Yes, it could be all of that. There's only one word I can sum it down to. There was a void. Just keep in mind that void does not exonerate that person of accountability. Fab Story says loophole avoids accountability. Yeah, maybe. Void is just is. You can't blame void for anything. You can only say, oh, there was a void. You can learn from it, right? And you can learn from it, not in the way that you now, because that can become pressure on you, right? And you now say, let me be looking for void. No, no, okay? You shouldn't be looking for void to the point that you're losing yourself and you're now actively looking to fill void. It's not sustainable. You cannot do it anyway. You will hurt yourself in that process. But you can use it to understand, right? You can use it to have better discernment around the dynamics of your relationship. You can use it to have better empathy and say, babe, what's going on? As opposed to, no, it's supposed to be your job. You're a man. You're supposed to just be a man. Instead of going that angle, you are open to, you have a little bit better grace when you understand these things, right? Yeah. Void. Let's say ABJ says void. Maybe one of them was doing something wrong, contrary to the norm of a good relationship. I don't know. That part we don't know, right? We don't know. We just know that marriage wasn't anything close to a perfect marriage. That it couldn't be if the man was busy, was spending a lot of time in extracurricular activities. There's no way that could be a good marriage. See how that's not necessarily May's fault? Exactly. It's not necessarily May's fault. The only thing that we know is Yu's fault is trying to flip a side chick into a second wife. It doesn't work when you are a public figure that is well known, well loved. People love YUL. So they're expecting a little bit more from him. They don't want him to make this kind of stupid mistakes. That's unrealistic expectations on yours part, on you all's part, because it's a human being. But this one is a little extra, but it is what it is. Did they acknowledge it or just cope? A busy actor or a busy mom with school-age children will have a void. Yeah, not that type of void. There's always, now that can be a loophole. We can see it's coming together. That could be a loophole. You can use that when you can use it as an excuse of participating in bad behavior. You're like, oh, this angle right here, let me go and participate in bad behavior, right? Now that could be a loophole, right? A void needs a duty. Let me be clear. A void, I know you don't want to hear this. A void needs a duty. Okay. Okay. No, a duty is the other way around, because that seems like it's not holding him accountable. A duty needs a void. Anyway, process it. You correct me how you want, but you get the gist I'm coming at, right? A duty will need a void to come into your marriage. The void could be your reckless husband. You're right. He's reckless. But a duty needs a void. Just because we are busy, people will take kids to school or travel, it's not enough. If that's all it is, a duty will have a hard time coming in, because a duty needs space, because he needs to take over your page and make announcements, random announcements to the world, right? That's like, I don't know. We're talking about a strange woman. I don't know if you have an idea what a strange woman is. It takes over everything. It's energy. Takes over everything. I pray that you won't see a strange woman in Jesus' name. That's really what I can say about that. Okay? We're not talking about he fell into a quickus by mistake and then came back home, was going to get right back to you. And then that happened 10 years ago. But no, we're not talking about that. We're talking about take over your life. Okay? I hope you don't see that your family won't engage a strange woman, because just blaming your husband will not be enough. You can feel free to blame him all you want. Okay? You will need a little bit more to get closure you're looking for. Blaming does not help with closure. Okay? Because he will say, okay, yeah, I'm wrong, and you still won't be happy. Yeah. Dolores says Judy doesn't have any respect for sisterhood. Sisterhood. Oh.
He shock you.
Sisterhood, that is funny, Dolores. Or familyhood. Yeah, that's why it can't last, because what she has is whatever attention she's getting right now. But you're right. Most of the time, fame will destroy a relationship. 90% of fame kills familyhood. YUL just got lost in fame. That was the void. That's a good one. That's a good angle to look at it from. Chidima says, I can always trust you, Chidima. I can always trust you. She says, thank you for explaining void. YUL is responsible for all of his actions. Aisha says, how can you be away from your wife 5 days and come 2 days and go right back? Says Judy. Listen, no one can exonerate him. In reality, YUL will collect. It's just what it is. Synonyms of void is empty or vacant. Yes. How does that apply to marriage? A vacuum. When there's that's a good question, actually. So from a man's standpoint, let's talk about a man's accountability. A man, let me explain it so you can know that this is about a man's accountability more so than anything else. More so, like, let's not even bring women into it. Okay? A man needs to understand that if there's a vacuum, even he cannot fill that vacuum, right? He needs systems. He needs surrounding himself with the right type of energy to become fulfilled. Just because he's righteous or he's a good guy, he will never cheat on his wife is not enough. It is not. Okay? It is not enough. I pray that he will not meet a duty, because it's usually not a situation where it's like, oh, let me come and steal you from your husband. That's not how it plays out. That is not how it plays out. Okay? When people say fall on Bola or fall into the Kwekus, this is a real thing. I know in your heart of hearts you want to hold people accountable. No, don't say that's a real thing. It's never a mistake. I know how you feel, okay? But if it was that simple, the devil would not be succeeding breaking all these families apart. There's a lot of these people that are trying to do the right thing, being good guys, good girls. But there was a vacuum. There was a void. They left a wild gap. They left a wild gap open. Not necessarily intentionally, but they thought they were good enough. You need the right people around you. You need to be listening to the right type of content. If you're listening to the wrong type of content, you self will participate in bad behavior. Then you'll come back and tell us it's a mistake. And a bunch of people who have no room for grace will tell you you're full of it. You knew exactly what you were doing and you were being intentionally wicked. They will tell you that. There's more than enough of them that will tell you that too. Okay? Is it possible that some people are just wicked? Yes. For the most part, it is not. Because if that was the case, it would be a war zone out here. Okay? People will participate in bad behavior when it feels right. Why is it feeling right? There was a void. It's often inside of a blind spot. They didn't know they were capable of participating in bad behavior too. Right? Think about your bad habits. Your bad habits, you know it's bad for you. You know that the outcome of it is wrong. However small it is for you, because I know you're perfect and you never really participate in bad behavior. Let's call it bad habits. Maybe you just bite your finger. Right? So something that you know is not really good for you, but you participate in it, right? Because it feels good. It's just for some weird reason, it gets you going through the moment, right? So multiply that by 10 million times over. It looks like a Judy and YUL to you. And you're like, I will never be that person. No, your biting fingers is still wrong. It's bad habits. However, I can understand that it's a bad habit. However, I can understand that if I don't put bitter leaf on your finger, you will continue to bite your fingers. I don't know. I think I'm over talking it out. Just go and think about it, okay? Just go and think about it, right? So inside of a marriage, it could be a husband who sees his girl, his wife, as the homie, lover, and friend, but is more skewed to the homies. He forgot that this is a woman, a lady at the end of the day, who wants to feel like you pamper them, who wants to feel romance, right? She likes the idea you're the homie, but she wants to feel like a lady sometimes. But it's like, okay, what are you looking for? Go and sit down somewhere there, right? And he forgot. And then he lost his wife. And they were like, well, how did he lose his wife? The wife cheated. And it's like, well, that's her fault. You're right, that's her fault, but you still lost your wife. There was a void. That guy made her feel a little bit extra special. Does that mean it's your fault? No, it is not. Was it a void? Yes, it is. It was a void. Did you like that example better? Maybe. Hopefully. I don't know. ABJ is from what Allah is explaining as void. This could be an example. May and the children being in Lagos and you being in Enugu. Yes, that could be an effective void. And we talk about long distance. Long distance is some people's reality sometimes. But on a sustainable way, sustained over time, it's a bad idea. Especially if you have the options of not doing that, don't do that. Okay, that's a void. A Judy will enter that void. Okay, that's not May's fault. Okay, is it still Yu's fault? Yes, because it's a void doesn't mean it's not your fault. Okay, but maybe you thought, I'm strong enough, I can handle it. Yeah, right. I remember when I did discrete math as a computer science major back in the day. I bet you do, Chinye. I bet you do. Discrete logic. It's already collecting. Yes, we're not the one that will judge these people. I promise you. If you're engaged with judging either side of or any of the sides, you can relate. You need to check yourself. Check yourself. There's a way you can relate. You need to calm down. There's a reason why you can relate. You're gonna hurt yourself. I'm letting you know right now. If you're overly engaged with it needs to be somebody's fault. calm down. I'm telling you, there's a reason why you can relate, and you're probably collecting already, and you're not paying attention. Okay. YUL is suffering and smiling. He don't collect already. What man do you know that wants his house falling apart in the eyes of the public? All right. He has moments during the day. You think he's not gonna miss those caves? I know he's always away, but the fact that he doesn't have the option to go back home and just feel safe like he used to. Do you know what that means to a man? No, regardless of how much of a cheater he is, even if he's a toxic, even if it's what's the word? If he's a chronic cheater, he doesn't want that taken away from him. Okay? So trust me, you're not the one that will judge him. He's already collecting water, I promise you. Okay? If you could have humbled himself throughout this process, it should have been better for him. Facts. These are the facts. What happened was, I don't do Shalaye Tire today, but I don't see any super chats, so hopefully we'll get some ad revenues on this. Hopefully it's not slapped. I feel friendship is very important in marriage. Being able to talk openly and honestly really helps in its success. Yes, that will decrease the chances of voids. That's a fact. Okay, that would decrease the chances of voids. Not to see you, I'm coming right up to you. Gee, the devil made them do it. WhatsApp group. Oh Lord, let's see. When they will be enjoying, they won't know anything about the devil. Omo, you're your own worst enemy for the most part. Jesus is their father, Virgin Mary. It is pronounced Becky. It's pronounced Becky Bu Agbara. Okay. Judy was just one side piece, but one with a mission. Yeah. Are you trying to say she didn't fall on the bola? This was intentional. Beke Bu Agbara is like saying English is not your mate. Express your tiwa. When you were trying to explain for it. More. Let me see. May didn't give him peace to continue cheating. But with Judy, he can continue his bad behavior. That's a good point. The side chick will give you the freedom because they're happy with every moment they get anyway, But this situation looks like it wasn't a real player, multiple side chick situation. She was a main side chick. I want you to pay attention to that. Think about that strong enough. A main side chick is actually much more powerful than a wife, oftentimes. That's a hell of a void. If somebody had the opportunity to have a whole side chick, that is a hell of a void. Yeah, that person was playing wife outside. A peace provider of some sort, right? It's just a matter of time her madness will be calm. Judy is a strange woman raised to power 1 million. Yeah, maybe one day we'll get to the strange woman thing. I don't know. I don't think it's necessary. I think a strange woman is a symptom. I just triggered somebody. Jesus Christ.